You're watching The Breakfast Club.
Morning, everybody. It's DJ NV, Angela Yee, Charlamagne the God. We are The Breakfast Club. We have some special guests in the building. Pastor John Gray and his wife, Avantar Gray. Did I say that right?
Avantar.
Avantar.
Good morning. Good morning. How are y'all?
Morning.
How are y'all?
Glad to be here. Honored to be here.
Now, you recently left Lakewood, man.
Well, we're in the process of
leaving.
Yeah. We're moving to Greenville, South Carolina, and so we'll still have the relationship with Lakewood at least throughout the end of this year, and hopefully over the years. But we're focusing in on this new thing.
I didn't know that you could do that. Like, just up and leave a church and go to another set of shop.
It's not like Chick-fil-A where you can just get a franchise. Like, God, I'm going to go ahead and move out here to Greenville because they need you. We just feel like that's where God called us. Houston is the fourth largest city, most diverse city in America.
Yeah.
And things were going good. But I told my wife, and I just bought her, a new home. And I said, but I feel like God is about to move us.
Wow.
And I can't even tell you why. I mean, but it was time.
Yeah.
And we've been there 5 years. 5 is a number of grace. It was our grace period. And it was time to move to something else. And
what was that feeling like? What was that call like? Why South Carolina?
What you mean, why South Carolina?
Monk's Corner in the house.
But why? What was that call for South Carolina?
Well, honestly, I've always had a heart for smaller towns. I grew up in Cincinnati. And my wife's from Dothan, Alabama. So we're both, kind of relatively small to mid-sized towns.
Yeah.
And, I was serving Pastor Joel and Pastor Victoria's vision. We served that vision, and we thank God for that. But, there comes a time when there's a vision in you.
Right.
And it just depends on the right place to launch it. And Greenville, great people, emerging city. And there's just a lot of wonderful opportunities there.
And I'm sure they're so excited to have you there.
Yeah. The response has been overwhelming, but honestly, the truth is, past all of that, we felt like God told us that's where we need to be.
That's interesting that you still get those callings on your life, because I don't know why people think you only get one calling in your life.
Yeah.
Right? No, man. I mean, if you're listening to the voice of God, God is progressive, and what's funny is progress is not always about expansion. It's not like, okay, we in Houston, let's go to New York, or let's go to L.A.
Yeah.
It's not a career move. It's like, God, where do you want me so I can do what you want me to do? Because to us, success could be serving at a church with 10 people. To me, that's success if we do what we're supposed to do. It's not about the biggest crowd. It's a lot of people that want crowds. I never wanted a crowd. I've never wanted a crowd. I never wanted the microphone. I'm called to it. And I think that's why God trusts us with it, So I'm excited about it. Plus, I love the mountains and creeks. I want to go fishing. I'm a real chill guy. I just want to watch basketball. Occasionally, put my feet on the wood.
There you go.
I want to watch.
Play basketball?
Yeah.
You play?
No, I'm called to watch.
He wants to sit
watch.
courtside.
Yeah,
He wants to sit courtside.
I'm not called to play. This body is not built.
I know.
You're blessed with the ability to have these courtside seats.
Yeah, that's it. I'm blessed with courtside ministry.
He said, what?
Man, why you do that to me?
I'm just saying, though, let's keep it real. We watch. We love.
Now what? I've been talking to kids a lot lately, and kids are having a hard time right now believing in God.
I know, man.
For everything that's going on. What do you say to those kids out there like that?
Well, I think the problem is the people that have said they represent God don't have God's heart.
Yep.
And so my thing is, if you don't have his heart, don't use his name. What we've seen is a lot of what I call velvet rope ministry, where, if you're a certain pedigree or you have a certain level of status, people give you more access or that kind of thing. But the Jesus that I see in the Bible was a man who touched lepers, then he healed them. A man who spent time with prostitutes and then restored them. A man who talked to broken women at the well who had 5 husbands and was living with a man and lovingly restored her. So today we have a judgmental perspective where everybody's pointing a finger at people. And if you sin a different sin than me, then you're worse than me. And that's just not the biblical New Testament narrative. Everything about Jesus was humble, serving, and non-self-seeking. And if we had more people that were about meeting the needs of others, reaching the poor, the dispossessed, the marginalized, the disenfranchised, and social justice is a part of the Bible. You can't run from it because he abhors people who hurt the poor. So, we've got a part of the subset of Christianity that, puts a part of their Democratic or Republican Party up and then puts Jesus on it. Jesus wasn't a Republican. He wasn't a Democrat. He wasn't an
Had nothing to do with
independent.
government or politics
No.
at all.
He was a monarch. He was a king. So he's already on the throne. He don't care who you vote for because you can't vote him out. You see what I'm saying? So I think people are hurt because the people who say they represent God don't carry his character.
Not only that, I think a lot with the shootings and the killings and a lot of people, feel
Why
like
would that
there's a lot
happen
of
to a bunch of
innocent people
kids,
dying
good people,
and kids
yeah.
and things like that.
Well, that's a deep conundrum, and it's why do bad things happen to good people? And if God is real, then why did he let that happen? And if God is real, why did my grandmother die of brain cancer? If God was real, then why did my father die on East 23rd and 1st Street in Manhattan at the Veterans Hospital when I needed him? You see what I'm saying? On
How do you
December
answer
7th
that?
of 2000. Well, the answer is I don't know. And I'm wise enough to say there's some things I will never know.
I'm glad you said that. That's the other problem with a lot of these leaders. Everybody think they know everything. Everybody got to be an expert. What's wrong with saying you don't know? And I'm just trying to figure it out.
Yeah, that's what faith is. Faith is saying, God, this makes no sense.
that's what's real.
But what I've learned is that everybody has free will. We're not puppets. People do horrible things. God didn't do that. God didn't pull the trigger. God didn't tell him to pull the trigger. You can't just put God's character on somebody's craziness. That's not what the word says. I can't go up there and tell you I represent Jesus and then talk about how much I hate you and berate you and beat you. That's not what Jesus was. I don't get to put his character on my bad behavior.
Right.
You see what I'm saying? So there are some things that God had nothing to do with. We are autonomous human beings who make horrible decisions, and sometimes we make great decisions.
Yeah, sometimes we submit our will to God, and sometimes we submit our will to the devil.
That's it.
That's how I feel.
I'm with that.
Well, your new season of the Book of John Gray is starting Saturday
Mm-hmm.
on OWN. So what can we look forward to? Because I know last season was pretty explosive to watch. I enjoyed watching that a lot. Tami Roman was on there.
Yes, babe. You want Tammy this season?
This season, we start off with Tami deciding that she wants people to see the evolution of her character. Of course, she's pretty much known for Basketball Wives and
Smoking Newports down to the filter.
And the Bonnet Chronicles.
Bonnet Chronicles.
all of those
Bonnet
amazing things that make her who she is. However, she's thinking about legacy now. She's thinking about what she can leave to her girls. And I think her heart is broken because she's trying to change what people know her for and move into this Tami that has grown, that has matured, and people want to see her where she used to be because that's exciting and that's fun. So she's pretty much getting attacked for trying to change and shift. And basically, we're just speaking life to her, trying to figure out why she's so broken, why she's so easy to pop off. But everybody has those pain moments in their history that make up the way they see life and their worldview. And so I think this unveiling of Tami being honest with herself about what actually hurt her and why she responds to those triggers so easily is something that people can relate to. And that's what you'll be able to see in the very first episode. And we've been working with Tami a little bit. So she's trying, but just like all of us, we all have two sides. We have the good one and we have the bad one. Like
The
you
ratchet
said,
and the righteous.
the one that wants to be this holistic, beautiful Samaritan type person, and the one that's like, whatever, I'm gonna get me and I'm gonna do me. And so for her, I think she's a great example of what God can do when you make up your mind to shift. It doesn't mean you're perfect, but it means you're trying.
How do you decide who's on the show? Like, did you guys approach Tami? Like, okay, we would love to, or does she?
She found us, and a lot of the people who have the help stories that we deal with submit their stories and they go through them. But some of the people we've had relationships with already, and they go through the process, and that's how they end up.
Yeah, the producers
being
bring
on
us
the-
stories, and we say if we feel it's something
Yeah.
that we can help. Because some people,
And she actually didn't even come to us. She did the process. Like, she sent an
Wow.
email and everything. And we're like, Tami,
like we didn't even know.
we didn't know.
And she's from Houston, right? Isn't she?
She lives in
She lives in
I'm from
Houston.
Jersey.
Yeah, she's from up here.
No, she's
No.
from
Okay,
here.
but
she's
she
from
lived in
up north.
Houston.
But
Every
But
time I
she
go
does.
to
She
Houston,
does
it's
have a
like
home in
Tami.
Houston.
Well, who do y'all go to when y'all need couples therapy or a little counseling advice?
We have
There are a couple.
Yeah, we
There are
have
a few people.
we have a couple folk. We've got a marriage counselor that we see out of Houston, and he's been walking with us for some years now. I've got a couple of men that I speak to. Dr. A.R. Bernard out of CCC in Brooklyn. Dr. James Mormon, a pastor out of Southfield, Michigan. These are men who aren't impressed with me or my gifts. They don't care nothing about what I do, and they'll tell me the truth, stuff I don't want to hear. because the reality is celebrity Christianity those two words don't even make sense.
Right.
You know, all of this is favor, and so it's an illusion. And if I get caught up in any of this and I start wearing sunglasses at night, then I done drank the Kool-Aid. You know, when you're a pastor but you can't speak to people, something's wrong.
Right.
When you're a pastor and you feel like you're entitled, something's wrong. And so
But
I
you
found
see that a lot now.
Oh yeah, I see it a lot, and we've seen it a lot.
It's a fad now. It almost seems like it.
Yeah,
Being a pastor, being-
I'm not with that.
Right.
And what I've noticed is that if I'm not careful, I'll forget the things that matter the most. You know, I got a beautiful wife here, 7 years. She's been holding down my vision. And for many years, I didn't even see all of her gifts. I was so busy with this vision, what I thought God was telling me to do, but I was not unlocking her gifts. I wasn't looking out for her needs. And then my kids are crying because I'm out of town preaching for everybody else. My own family falling apart. And so I had men to tell me, you need to turn it around. You need to change some things. And that's what matters. Because when all of this is done, she going to be there and them kids going to be there. God ain't going to ask me how I did on the Breakfast Club, even though this is a huge platform, and I'm grateful for it.
Yeah.
But he's not going to be, man, you did good, man. When Envy was asking you them questions, he's going to be like, hey, tell me about that wife.
Hey, you
Tell me
never
about them
know,
kids.
though. He might ask.
He might inquire. You know what I mean? He might be like, "Yo, I saw you down there. I was a little disappointed." You know what I mean? He might.
Have you ever had to check him?
Oh, absolutely. All the time. And I'm cool with it because I know my position. I'm not a fan.
She don't seem sweet. She seemed like a check. It seemed like she's checking.
She don't
in.
seem sweet.
Yeah, no, I mean, she don't seem like she ain't gonna take nothing soft.
How you say she not? You
do
could
say
be sweet and
things
still
soft,
check
but
somebody.
I think for me, I'm not a fan. I do champion my husband and I cheer him on and I am his biggest cheerleader, but I'm not fascinated by just and enamored with who he is that I can't tell him the truth. I think that it would be a disservice to both of us to not tell him the truth inside of our home so that he's not being authentic while he's in a public setting. Because you have the power when you can be real at home. You have more power in public when you're the same in private. So I'm called to push my husband into the greatest place of purpose and realization of who he is at home, so that when he's stepping onto the platform, he's being the real him and not trying to become anything for whatever setting he's in. Not the flavor of the day, not the whatever is popping, let me be that. Just
Right.
be
That's
you,
real.
and whoever you're called to reach, that's who you'll reach. And everybody won't like you. Everybody won't understand you. And I get that. But I'm fully aware of who God created me to be. I'm a pastor's wife, but I also have tattoos, and I like braids, and I like wigs, and I like, hip hop, and I like Beyonce. And I also know God, and I can pray for you, and I can tell you about my faith and how far it has brought me. That doesn't disqualify me because I might listen to her a little bit and actually love it.
She
You know
love
what I'm
God,
saying?
too.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's the thing. That there's this whole separation of the us versus them. We need to get rid of that. All of us are the exact same. All of us need the grace of God. All of us have been through things. All of us have a past. All of us, have done some things we aren't, proud of.
Can we all be saved, or do you think there's people that just we can't do anything?
I think everybody can be, but some people will choose not to be.
Yeah.
The hardest thing in the world is to go to hell. The easiest thing in the world to do is get to heaven.
Yep.
Because all it takes is a confession of your mouth. Anybody who tries to add more to it than that is being overly religious.
Right.
Confess with your mouth, believe in your heart that Jesus
That's
is Lord.
it.
You shall be saved. But people want you to jump through hoops to please them. But everybody won't believe what we believe, and that's not my role. My role is if people come voluntarily into our church, I'm going to preach what's in my heart. But I'm not going to walk up to you on the street and just start blasting you, and I don't know you. I don't know your story, don't know where you came from, and start telling you you're wrong.
Answering questions you didn't ask.
Yeah, that's the problem with religion.
Don't you-
sometimes.
That's
Don't you-
offensive.
I'm sorry.
To walk up and tell somebody they're wrong for however they're living their life. That's offensive.
Yeah.
Before you know them, you have no
Yeah.
relationship. That's not what Jesus did, and that's the point. Because it's going to be super religious people watching this. They waiting to comment right now. They thumbs
And
just
I'm
on
good,
it.
'cause I'm
That's
secure in
blasphemy
mine.
right there.
I'm
I knew I
secure
didn't
in
like
mine.
you. You're fat and you look like T.D. Jakes and Suge Knight mixed together. I don't like him. But the point is this: when Jesus was talking to the woman at the well, he could have blasted her. Like, you're living in sin, filthy. You've been married 5 times, dirty, low down, backing it up. And what did he walk up to? He's like, hey, let me get some water, though. And she's like, you know good and well you ain't supposed to be talking to me because Jews and Samaritans don't talk to each other. Okay, you don't know me. He was like, but if you knew who I was, you asked me for some water and you never thirst again. And then he got
Hell of
her.
a pickup line, by the way.
Yeah.
That's why
It's not sexual
Jesus
Jesus.
sounded
with
like
the
that.
pickup
No,
line.
That's why I be saying you can't save these hoes. That's Jesus' job.
No comment. My point was he got her attention and he reached her where she was, and then the conversation went into a supernatural place, and he told her past, and he also spoke to her future. Right. And before that conversation was over, she went from a broken woman to an evangelist in one conversation. And that's what a real encounter with Jesus can do. It's not there to break you, it's to build you.
Yep.
And too much of the narrative has been about how horrible we are and how wrong we are, as opposed to the grace and the blood that's available. And that's what we're about.
How did y'all meet?
Church.
She was dancing. I saw her dancing. And she was
But
dancing.
it was at church.
It was at church.
I said, oh,
But I saw the workout pants, and I was like, yeah, Lord, yeah, yeah, Lord, because that there, that's for me.
Really?
Yes. Oh, yes. I
claimed
saw
it in the name
the
of Jesus.
cheeks of ministry. I saw them and said, God, those are for me. She had tattoos.
We were working at the same church.
Yeah,
and
we
he
was
was
working in
supposed to
ministry.
be seeing these youth, but
I
you were over
was.
there looking at.
How you
the
holler in
dance.
church though? What's the proper way to holler
You
in
know-
church?
church.
Okay.
We were friends. We were working together
So you
for the
started that
youth.
way, okay.
I never
Yeah.
knew her name. Never knew her name.
Yeah, because he had a lot of wannaboos around him, and I was
We're
like,
not here for that. We're not here for that.
he had a lot of
Wannaboos.
wannaboos, and I was not one of them. They were really fascinated with
Look
him.
at him sweating.
I was busy, you know.
Give us some more napkins.
I was a single pastor in Atlanta.
I was getting. I was
Straight
getting,
single pastor.
Straight.
Yo, stop.
No
Yo,
comment.
Yo, stop. I'm listening. Go ahead.
Eventer, see how hard it is to even speak on this show?
I'm just-
No,
I'm
sorry,
finish
Eventer.
your
I'm
story.
sorry.
Go ahead,
I'm
baby.
sorry.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
We were working in ministry together, and like I said, he did have a lot of wannaboos around, and I was just like, bless his heart, it would be good for him to get married. I made it my point to find him somebody. It wasn't me, because I had my heart broken, and I was engaged before, and so was he. But I was just like, he's a nice guy. We kept talking as friends, and then it kind of shifted because I had choreographed a dance that kind of told the sermon that day in church, so the pastor didn't preach. The message through the dance was the sermon. And so after church, he believed that he was moved by the dance. So
No,
he asked
you
me.
missed a very important point.
What part?
I saw you at the altar worshiping.
Oh, okay. Let's
And
get
I
to
walked
that.
up to her, and I literally look over, she's worshiping. Now,
he
what she
grabs
didn't
my
say is 2
hand.
weeks in a row, we ended up sitting next to each other at a 10,000 member church and didn't try.
But you were
So-
also like positioned in the dancer section.
I know, but I
so-
pay tithes. I can sit where I want.
Okay.
So what I'm saying is God had us sit next to each other. He was like, hey, dummy, right here. So then this Sunday when she had choreographed this dance, I look over, we're all at the altar worshiping. There she is again. And I watched her worship. I said, God, her worship is real. That's who I want. I still didn't know her name, but I grabbed her hand and started worshiping.
Yeah.
She didn't smack me. And I was like, that's a sign.
Brothers and sisters in Christ, you hold hands.
No, well, anyway, after
you-
church, I got her
Listen,
number.
She had some reservations.
After church, I got her number. I walked up to her and I was like, yo, you blessed me. And I was like, let me borrow your phone.
No. You said, tell me about that piece you choreographed.
Right.
You know, what was your inspiration behind
Christian
it?
game. Christian game.
What was your
Christian
inspiration
game.
behind
inspiration
the
yourself?
movement
Okay.
and expression and blah, blah,
And
blah,
while
blah.
she's talking-
And he was like, well, let me borrow your phone. So that part is true. And,
And then
I
I
give him
dialed
my
my
phone like
number
a ding
and called
dong.
myself. I said, this is wifey's phone.
He stole my
Left-
phone number.
And then I texted that night like, you want to talk to daddy?
Nah.
She's like, yeah,
Nah.
daddy, I've been waiting on you.
Oh, really? That's what you're going to do in these
Yeah.
nice people's studios? In these nice people's radio stations?
But
Is
on
that
some
what you're
real
gonna
talk,
do?
did you, Eventer, did you have reservations about dating him at all? What were those reservations, and when did you realize, okay, it's worth a shot?
The reservations had really nothing to do with him. It just had to do with me. And I had been hurt, and I was engaged, and it didn't work out. So I was just fully committed to just learning me and growing. So when I saw him and he was funny and he was joking with everybody and talking with everybody, I didn't feel like, it was a thing. We
There was
were
no attraction
friends.
right away.
Hold on, man.
I did love the God in him, and I saw his heart. But he traveled a lot, so we would be working in passing for the youth at the church that we were at in Atlanta. So I feel like we had a few conversations, and they kind of grew and evolved into some other things where we were discussing our thoughts about life, family dynamic, just where do you see yourself, what happens. And I don't think it was game at all. I think that since I wasn't so overwhelmingly like just positioning myself to be in front of him like I had seen so many people. And I mean, no knock to them if that's what they felt like they needed to do. I was just falling back. But
she was also in school getting her 3rd degree.
Yeah, I was in school, so I didn't really have a opportunity to just be out trying to figure it out, especially after, having heartbreak that I had experienced. I was very hurt because I had planned a wedding. I had the dress.
Whoa.
And the bridesmaids had dresses. So it was like a canceled wedding after everything was, there's no way that I could foresee that it was going to end the way it did. So my feelings were hurt, but he was my friend. And
what point did you pray on it? At what point did you pray on this?
I will tell you, after the first conversation, I prayed if I should have another conversation because I was like, listen, Jesus, I don't have time for any games or any foolishness. Help me to identify if this is just, somebody who's my friend or if this is somebody I can grow with. I didn't get an answer immediately, but I decided to entertain more conversation. And then we discussed stance and on our positioning about, sex before marriage and all of that kind of stuff because I needed him to know right off the top that we weren't doing that because I had chosen to save myself. I was not a virgin when we got married, but
Don't play.
I had a couple of encounters. However,
oh my God!
You didn't see the quick prayer she said just now. She was.
However, if you want a different outcome, you do something different. And I had recommitted myself to the Lord, and I told him up front, and then I learned of his stance. So that was a real big relief to be like, okay, I'm not gonna have that pressure.
Well, how long,
so I can get to know
until
him.
I got married?
It was quick.
It was
Right.
quick.
We don't need to be playing with it.
5 days.
So it was October of 2009 when I started getting serious about her. In January of 2010, I asked to go meet her family. And then I asked her to be my girlfriend April 17th.
And asked me to marry
and then
you
I asked her to marry me July 17th.
And then we got married December 11th.
So it was
And
like
we had
a little
negative
over a year.
Over a
same
year.
year.
Over a year.
Yeah. So we had negative $11 in the bank when we went to Hawaii for our honeymoon. And I could cry right here
And like
because
an envelope of cash.
an envelope of cash from the
gifts.
wedding. We
From the
opened
gift
up
wrap.
all them cards before we got on that plane.
Shaking them like, oh, really?
When you got to swipe your credit card on Faith, you know you struggling.
Like, let it
I was
go
like,
through.
It was like transmitting, so see, processing, help me Jesus, receiving, and it's like I think about where we were and where we are now and how good God's been. And, like she said, she was engaged. I gave her the best ring I could then. Show him that rock now. I don't never brag, but just go and show him.
what
7
God
years
can
and
do.
2
Look
kids.
what God can do.
All right.
No, don't show
Look
it.
what God can do.
Show it.
Show him
Look
what
at
7
God.
years and 2 kids will
God.
do. Huh? Let's go.
How people in the church look at you guys? Because I mean, nice rock, nice watch. I seen your jacket when you walked in.
I
my
got
wife-
that for him.
yeah,
though.
my
I
wife
worked
hooked me
hard
up.
for that.
My wife
I
hooked me
worked
up
for
on
that.
I couldn't find that.
Because I
jacket.
wanted,
What kind of
I
jacket
wanted
is
to
it?
bless
I couldn't
him.
find that jacket.
Louis Vuitton
It's a
Supreme.
It was a Supreme
Oh,
Louis
okay,
Vuitton.
okay.
They only made a couple of them. I couldn't get one. I couldn't get one. So,
I might just bless you.
But it is this.
wait. What did he say? What did he say?
I might just bless you.
The Lord didn't say that. I worked hard for that. I worked hard
you
for
had to get
that.
How do
Next.
people look at you guys with some of the stuff that you guys have?
Okay, so he's also a writer. I'm a writer. This isn't church money. He travels and
He got a TV show.
And I also have a book.
He has a book. He's directed a short film that won a few competitions. So there are other streams of
You
income.
get paid for speaking engagements.
Yes.
Yeah, but the book has been very kind. I mean, my book happened to come out at the same time as someone else's book that was a New York Times bestseller. So some of my sales were carnivorously taken by
And God is in the
another
blessing
author.
business, man. You know God is in the blessing business. He spreads
It's a
it around.
phenomenal book, man, and I'm
you.
so
Yeah.
happy for your success.
Thank you, sir.
But for me, I don't do anything for me. I might get an occasional pair of Jordans, but everything I do is for my wife and my kids. I work hard because I do want to bless her.
And
She
we
gave
give
me-
away a lot.
Yeah, but she gave me 2 kids in 11 months. She lost her thyroid behind, being pregnant that fast. So she's literally laid her health down. She's been the biggest advocate for any dream and vision I open my mouth to. She works till 3 a.m, gets up at 6, so the kids have everything they need. She's the COO. She runs this whole thing.
Yes.
So I'm not going to sit. Don't do that, girl. In the Breakfast Club, you might get a. All right. But so what I'm saying is, it's nothing for me to want to bless her.
Right.
It's just stuff. But I want to honor her. You know what I'm saying? Because she's given her life for my vision. So it's a ring, but it's my expression. It's what I call the gas station ring. So when you at the gas station and I'm not there, and a dude try to holler at pump 12, when he see you pumping with that,
same way.
he know.
I gotta come correct,
Right?
Or I'm not coming at all.
Exactly.
Aventa, I got to ask you this because you've been talking about how the first engagement didn't work out. And I'm sure, as you kept saying, you were heartbroken. A lot of people go through that. They go through relationships, they're heartbroken, but it's setting you up for something bigger, a bigger blessing.
Absolutely.
Why did
Why
it
I gotta
not
be
work
bigger?
out?
Come on, man. Stop making jokes about Pastor Gray's work. Man. That's messed up. Why would you say that?
Shut up.
You didn't have to say it. You could have just said better.
What did you say?
So what?
'Cause it changed
I'm
completely.
ignoring him. I'm good at ignoring him. So what exactly happened that everything was paid for, dresses and all of that it didn't work out?
Well, okay. So you know that saying about when it's truly over, you should pay attention to that. My brother passed away from lung cancer. He was 34. I was at FAMU, and my ex, he had a couple of encounters that didn't involve me. So I was done with the relationship, and we decided to be friends. However, when my brother passed away, I fell back to what was familiar. He was a good advocate for helping me wake up, go to school. You got to comb your hair. I was broken because my brother and I were super, super close. So it kind of like restored the relationship without saying that was what was happening. And then somebody was having a baby and it wasn't me.
Oh,
Wow.
So it's okay.
ooh, okay.
So
was good.
even when y'all talk about marriage counseling now, like a lot of people think you go to marriage counseling when something's wrong, but y'all just go to keep things healthy.
Preventative
You have
measures.
to go. You have to keep going, because if you don't, the small issues become big. They're called wedge issues. Just like she's got some wedge heels, I'm learning. So they start small and they get big. So a little issue, if you don't get it then, becomes big. And what I've learned about us, we're 0 to 100, which means it's either all good or it's just explosive. Because I'm a communicator, but I'll hold things in because I don't like confrontation. But if I get to a confrontational point, I bring up everything that I was offended by chronologically.
I'm the same way.
Right. The
You see
damn
what I'm
breaks.
saying?
Things that you remember, it just goes, and it don't be the right place.
You're
and
like, why
it don't
didn't
be
you
things
bring
we're
it up
talking
then?
about.
Right.
Exactly.
And then
Right.
it's unfair because the actual issue at hand never gets addressed
right.
because you've pulled back something that you didn't bring to the surface when it happened so you can move forward from it. And it's unfair to unload on somebody something that they didn't even know that you were upset about.
That's real.
And there are places of pain that she had before she married me.
And he did as well. So that's the things you have to identify. When you're marrying a person, you're marrying who they want you to see. But there are some things in their past that may not get addressed because you cannot address every single thing before you get married. They may come up, and once they come up, you don't know how you're going to act until it's time to act. You know what I'm saying? You can possibly have a narrative in place where, well, if this happens, then I will. But there's no way to formulate all of those situations before you get married. So when you marry a person, you marry them for the good and the bad that may come with, or something that may come up a little bit later. Because I have a worldview based on how I was raised. I was raised with both of my parents. They'll be married for 49 years in a couple of weeks. And my husband is a product of a divorced home. Does it make me better than him? No. I saw marriage. He saw single mother. So we're trying to formulate our own situation. Like, he gives me what she gave him, and I give him what they gave me, and then we decide what we're going to do for ours. So a lot of people don't take the time to process that, and we don't always agree. Because sometimes I'm like, pop him. He's like, give him grace. No, pop him. He is wrong because the world is not going to give him certain graces for different things. If he pops back at the teacher, he's going to get in trouble. So we need to address that now. So we have these little things. But just like a car, if it runs out of oil at some point, it's gonna fall apart. It's maintenance. Even good marriage is needed.
Absolutely.
You have to restore. You have to reset, especially with the busyness of our lives. If you don't stop and take time to reset and restore and refresh and just get to know one another versus where do we have to be next, what airport or what hotel are we staying in,
What
then
are the kids doing? My
the
wife got
whole
my-
conversation becomes that
And my
versus
wife got my kids all in all these extracurriculars. My daughter ice skate, dance. My son plays basketball better than me. He's 5. That's embarrassing.
and the piano.
Yeah, and he plays piano. So
And he
you
says
know,
he wants to be an astronaut.
yeah, he wants to be an astronaut. So my son's a miracle. You know, they thought he wouldn't live.
Yeah.
You know, he
had sleep apnea.
Sleep apnea. So he almost died. And they were like, he's not gonna talk. This, that, and the third. His last report card 3 days ago was what?
Straight
Holler
A's.
at me.
Dope.
Yeah, because he was oxygen deprived before he was 2, almost every night, and because they don't particularly care for
They don't
doing
do
that
surgery.
that young unless it's a specialist, we just had to pray for God to keep it. And then I had those same questions. Lord, why my son? I serve you. I try to do well. You know, I try to live a good life. I'm like, really? And our son has to be the one to go through this? So, you know, but I know he gave us that testimony to tell somebody else
Absolutely.
about it. But he's a miracle. He is talking, and he's smart, and he's
Talk a
nothing
lot.
of what the doctor said. And we prayed. We were like, God, he'll be none of that, none of what they said, and he's doing amazing.
You know what I'm about to ask? What do you feel about people who use different things? Like, I was selling my home a couple of months ago, and people said, buy a little statue of this and put it in your backyard and bury it and things like that. You see that a lot sometimes with people. They use these statues.
Symbols.
Yeah. I'm
I
not.
just don't subscribe.
I don't subscribe to it.
Yeah.
I didn't do it. I was scared of
Not even the
but-
cross?
I mean, I don't wear a cross. I'm not opposed to the cross, but if I was going to wear something, I'd rock an empty tomb because that, to me, is the finality of my faith. I'm grateful for the cross, but the cross is by itself not enough. It's the empty tomb that seals it for me. But I'm not opposed to the cross, and I understand what it means and what it symbolizes. But, you know, people have their own ideas about things, and, you know, I don't have anything to say one way or the other about it. I don't think you should make an idol out of anything. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But you know, putting something in the backyard.
For good luck or some whatever.
Yeah, I
It's
don't
not a
believe
big
in
deal.
luck.
do that a lot.
I don't believe in luck because I just believe that it's in the hands of God.
Yeah.
I've seen too
Everything.
many things happen. I think I shared before. You know, my mother was diagnosed end-stage pancreatic cancer, stage 4. No surgery, no chemo, no radiation. It's over. You got 3 months. She looked at the doctor and said, I'm glad you said I have no hope. Now you can't get credit when God heals me. Even I thought she was crazy. I was there. I saw the test results. Your liver is ravaged. Your
Stretched.
pancreas has, lesions.
Right.
You're going to die. She was like, I'm not going to die. God told me. I was like,
Not
you've been
from
in,
this. She
You've been
was
in
like,
church
I won't
too
die
long.
from this. Yeah.
That was June 23rd of 2011. She went into surgery June 27th. They searched for 3 hours. And the cancer that was there on June 23rd was nowhere in her body
'Cause we
on
prayed
June
and prayed and
27th.
prayed.
That's crazy.
Wow.
Now, I'm not telling y'all what to believe.
She didn't bury
but
anything in the backyard.
You can't tell me that her God is not real because I saw that with my own eyes.
Wow.
So, like, when people talk about miracles, I can't make you see what I see. But there will never be a moment while I'm breathing that you can talk me down from Jesus because I saw it with my own eyes.
But then there's people out there who got cancer right now that be like, man, please. I've been praying and praying and praying and praying, and I still got it. And people I
know.
love still got it.
I know, and that's the part that hurts because my mother's mother didn't get her prayer answered.
Yeah, she had the
Right.
brain
You
cancer.
see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And my brother died from lung cancer, and we believe for his healing as well. But here's the thing: God's will is going to be accomplished. Obviously, 34 years was enough for the purpose that my brother had to be accomplished. So I have to be okay with that, and I have to reconcile the fact that whatever he accomplished in the 34 years, whatever mark he left a 4-year-old son who is now getting ready to graduate from high school. He hasn't had any run-ins with the law. He hasn't been in any trouble. He's graduating with honors, and he can extend that legacy. So I have to be cool. I miss my brother daily. I miss him. I do. He's the one that introduced me to hip-hop. I was rapping Run DMC at 6 because we were 12 years apart. He was 18. And he gained his healing on the other side, so my prayer did get answered. I asked for him to be healed. It wasn't the way I thought. So he was healed on the other side. And I feel like whatever he was set to accomplish in those 34 years of life, he did, and I'm good with that. So that's what I say. I believe everybody gets the healing. It just It just means one way you're still here on earth to talk about it, to have people increase their faith and they believe. Sometimes it will work out in your favor, and other times it will work out the way God wanted it to be. So obviously 34 years again was enough for him, but he still got his healing. That's how I see it, and that's how we have to view it. Because you're right. There are people who are like, man, I hear the story about your mom, and that's cool for you, but my mom didn't make it. And that's what I tell my husband when he tells that story. Yes, well, I don't have that same testimony over here, and I'm with him, and I'm standing believing the same thing, but we have two very different realities. He gets to look at his mom, and I don't get to look at my brother living, but I do get to see him in the nephew that he left behind. And I do get to extend the legacy that I know he had for his love of music and just reaching people and loving people, because sometimes I don't even know why I love people so much, but I'm like, okay, that's that seed that I'm still carrying for my brother inside of me.
I got one more question for you. Go. Last year you did a Super Soul session, and you talked about the bridge, which was a message for this divided country that we're in right now. So you could tell people a little bit about the bridge.
Yeah, the bridge is really my heart. I think it's the heart of what me and my wife do. The bridge is basically the meeting point between two places that wouldn't normally connect. For me, I feel like we are more divided than we have ever been since the 1950s and 60s. It's clear. We are more isolated, more insular, more angry. We're more vitriolic. We have less patience, less grace. We are on the edge. The political and the social upheaval of the last 18 months has taken its toll. And so the bridge is the place where I'm able to meet with people that don't look like me, don't think how I think, and maybe we don't agree, but at least let's find some common humanity so we can push the conversation forward. So for me, the bridge, our nonprofit organization, it's called Become the Bridge. That was our avenue to reach people after the hurricane initially in Houston. So we gave resources to as many people as we could. But it wasn't just that. Become the Bridge is about, connecting and engaging culture. And it ain't just about people who think how we think. It's not like all Christians come hang out. It's like, let's go. If you have a need, we're going to meet the need. Yeah. So I don't care what you believe, who you love, what you think. You're welcome at our table. And that, for me, is a far cry from some of the more conservative theology that people espouse. Because it's like you need to only hang with people that think like you and look like you. And I defy that notion.
I do too. It's like what Jesus have when everything happened with Hurricane Harvey in Houston. It's like, were you really going to pull up with your boat and be like, who did you vote for before you get in my boat? Really? Or do you believe in Jesus Christ? Because if not, you can't get in my boat. That's not what he would have done. Buddhist, atheist, whoever you are, gay, straight, whatever, get in the boat. We're all here trying to work this out together. Are you kidding me? Who's going to wait and be like, now, if you don't show up at my church on Sunday, promise me that you're going to pay me X, Y. All of that is ridiculous, and we're here to cancel that. We're not doing that. That's what Become the Bridge is, and you lay yourself down so people can come across. Because we have people who are still waiting on help in Houston right now who don't look like us, because they may be in the country illegal, but we were taking things and we were helping get resources to them. Because we're all hungry, we're all in need, we all need help.
And we all God's children.
Yeah.
Everybody.
When you talk about undocumented immigrants, and that's one of the big things in the church, they voted, a lot of conservative people voted for a particular candidate, and I find it interesting that they're really strong on immigration, but Jesus left Israel and he was in Egypt as an immigrant, and he had to come back, and it's funny that their savior was an immigrant. So you're against immigration, but your savior was an immigrant because he had to go to Egypt. Yeah, Yeshua HaMashiach had to go to Egypt to flee political and spiritual persecution. And so until that war-ravaged moment was over, he couldn't come back to Israel. He had to go to Egypt. So the point is, it's funny that Jesus was an immigrant. He had to leave political and spiritual persecution from Herod. But we don't hear that part coming from people who are against immigration.
But they're sitting in church.
Where that sermon at? I need that sermon. Jesus was an immigrant. I know you about to put that together.
Yeah, I'm about to put it together.
I was about to say, they're not going to like it, but well.
Leave us on a prayer.
Lord, I want to thank you for the Breakfast Club. I want to thank you for Angela, DJ Envy, Charlamagne. I want to thank you for their influence and for the people that work with them. And more than that, for the people that listen. people will listen to them that won't ever come to a church. So I'm grateful that you allowed Aventure and I to speak on this platform. I pray that you bless their lives, their hopes, their dreams, and all of their listeners with whatever it is they're called to do. And I'm praying for this nation that you will allow healing to begin through conversation and dialogue and break the back of all of these spirits that have tried to keep us apart. And Jesus, I thank you for the opportunity. Let them all live long and prosper well. In your name I pray. Amen.
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 Damn, I
Thank
felt
you.
that one.
I did too.
Jesus ain't sending that one to the spam folder.
Well, the Book of John Gray, season 2, starts on Saturday on OWN.
That's
so we'll
right.
be watching.
10 p.m.
10 p.m.
Is
9
there
p.m.
one
Central.
story in particular that stands out to you, just so we know that I could look out for it for this season?
Ooh.
There are
One
so
that
many.
really.
It was a young lady that was dealing with cancer, breast cancer. And it just hit me hard because she was young and she comes from a pretty religious family, but her family really wasn't there to support her through it. Me and my wife were able to kind of walk with her because there's a lot of nuances to that story, but to see the strength of a black woman, you know, when everything's going crazy and she's able to hold on and still reach out, try to be a blessing to other people, that story really resonates with me.
All right.
Thank you for
you guys
joining
so
us,
much.
guys.
Thank
Thank
you.
y'all.
Mrs.
you.
and Mrs. and Mr. Pastor John Gray. Thank you, guys.